All right. Hello, viewers and subscribers. Welcome. Welcome everyone. It's a live stream. You know, and as you can tell from the title of the video, today is the anniversary of that West Indies T20 World Cup victory. In the specifically the one where the heroics of Carlos Brathwaite, you know, was what was contributed to them, win that championship. But it wasn't only Carlos Brathwaite alone that contributed, but because of his heroics in the final over of the match, you know, whenever you think about this moment, you always remember Carlos Brathwaite, remember the name. So even and it's a moment in cricket history for us as West Indian fans and just for cricket fans in general, that I think they'll always remember, not only because of what Carlos Brathwaite did in the final over of the match, but again because of the commentary of Ian Bishop, legendary, and I think everybody can attest to this, that hearing what he said when Carlos Brathwaite hit that the fourth six of Ben Stokes, and Ian Bishop said, Carlos Brathwaite, remember the name. That commentary sticks in the head of is like stuck in the head of everybody that's familiar with the West Indies victory in that T20 World Cup. So again, it's like going down memory lane. And I came across an article today that today was the anniversary, and I decided to do a live stream on it. Again, for us West Indian fans, it will always be in our brains, because that's one of the championships that the West Indies have won. And to this day, um there haven't been a lot of teams that has won the T20 World Cup more than once. And especially and the T20 World Cup that's coming up in June. Here in the in the Caribbean, in the West Indies. Um, and as West Indian fans, are definitely hoping that the West Indies can pull it off again on home soil. I think that would even be more spectacular than what happened when they beat India. No, when they beat England in that T20 final, right? And so for me, reliving that match, so I watched the match. I remember it vividly, and I can say there was a lot of nervous moments in that match. It wasn't just all glory. There was a lot of nervousness. The West Indies, some of the top West Indian batsmen didn't perform as expected. So, as you know, Chris Gayle, namely one, are arguably the greatest, T20 batsman of all time. Without that, well, in at least in my book and in a lot of West Indian books, and a lot of cricket fans are across the world, they have Chris Gayle as the greatest T20, batsman of all time. And unfortunately, in that match, he didn't perform, as us fans would have wanted him to. But that's why they say cricket is a team sport, right? So it's never about one man or one person. It's always a team, and that's why there are 11 people on the team. And it doesn't just apply to cricket, any team sport, but especially in this T20 final, it just goes to show that cricket is a team sport. Because I'm sure heading into the final, no one expected that Carlos Brathwaite would have been the one to bring West Indies over the line. If you had asked anybody, they would have probably said Chris Gayle, or I think Karen Pollard, or Dwayne Bravo, or Marlon Samuels, which Marlon Samuels did perform well in that match as well. He was the top scorer in the match. So even though Carlos Brathwaite heroics in the final over, led the team to put the team over the line to make them victorious. Without that innings from Marlon Samuels, it wouldn't have been possible. He scored 85, in that final, which was he was like the what do you call it now? The mainstay of the innings, of the West Indies innings. and he was there with Carlos Brathwaite at the end of the in the final over at the end of the match when Carlos Brathwaite brought us over the line, right? So big. So again, like I said, even though Carlos Brathwaite, his heroics is what is remembered, and his heroics, and whenever you see the clips, it's always his heroics and the commentary of Ian Bishop that is remembered. But trust me, without Marlon Samuels, West Indies would not have won that match. Chasing 150 runs, Marlon Samuels scored 85. So that's more than half of the runs that were required to win. And so big shout out to Marlon Samuels, always. Always big shout out to Marlon Samuels. Because without his contribution in that final, West Indies wouldn't be able to brag that they were champions of that T20 World Cup. you know. Um, but yeah, and even Carlos Brathwaite. So like I said, heading into the final over, for me personally watching the match, there was a lot of nervousness. Naturally, as cricket fans, knowing that your team needs 19, of the final over, that 19 in of any over in cricket is a lot to ask for. But Marlon Samuels was still at the crease, so there was still a glimmer of hope for me, but also nervousness as well. Because if you know Marlon Samuels, yes, he did score 85, but sometimes he's not a six hitter per se, even though he can hit sixes, you know, he's not a six hitter per se. So even though he was still there and striking the ball well in good form, there was still a lot of nervousness knowing that your team needed 19 runs from the final over. Carlos Brathwaite as well. Personally, I did not believe in Carlos Brathwaite at the time. Obviously, he had the potential, right? But as with a lot of West Indian players, they never realized that potential in West Indies colors, right? And before that moment, Carlos Brathwaite was one of them. There is no consistency with his performances for West Indies, especially with the bat, right? But you always knew that he had the power and the ability to hit sixes, play big shots. But again, his history before that T20 World Cup final, you know, it was something different. There weren't too many performances from him to back up the potential that we know he had. Um, so going into the final over, there's a lot of nervousness, but a glimmer of hope. And sometimes that's all you need. It's just a glimmer of hope, and then they say God will take care of the rest. And this what Carlos Brathwaite did in that final over is nothing short of miraculous. Yeah, it's nothing short of miraculous what he did in that final over. Right, and also spare a thought for Ben Stokes, because he hit the 4 sixes off Ben Stokes, and Ben Stokes is at the time, he was one of England's best players, an all-rounder. He was a top all-rounder in the world as well. So his captain trusting him with the last over. And I don't remember exactly what his figures were before that last over, but I'm sure he was bowling well. Hence the reason why the England captain, trusted him with the final over of the match. So again, like I said, it was a lot of nervousness. And when Carlos Brathwaite hit the first six, I was like, all right, cool. It's like the glimmer of hope began to grow, right? Because you needed 19 from 6 balls, then as the first six, so now you need 13 from 5, right? But again, knowing that there wasn't a lot of consistency with Carlos Brathwaite, you still, again, the hope was growing, but there's still nervousness, and that's cricket for you, right? Because the batsman can have their way or the bowler can have their way, right? He could have just hit 1 6 and then gotten out, So even though the glimmer of hope was growing, there's still nervousness. I mean, and it's a T20 World Cup final. Naturally, you're going to have nerves as a fan, and I'm sure, as a player as well, someone that's played cricket, I can only imagine the amount of nerves that the both Carlos Brathwaite and Marlon Samuels, were feeling, in the moment. And when he hit the second six, then all of a sudden, then the glimmer of hope or the nervousness, it started to turn into belief, right? Because now, it's you only need what 7 runs from however many balls, So that equation is very gettable, and especially after seeing him hit 2 sixes before, then that glimmer of hope, started to become belief, and that nervousness slowly turned to confidence. But at the same time, it's cricket. Cricket is unpredictable, and the next ball could have gotten him out. But when he hit the third six, when he hit that third six off Ben Stokes, everything, it was like, yes, we're going to win this, and it was, I can't explain the feeling, was just a feeling of joy, and I'm sure a lot of West Indian fans can attest to this, and just cricket fans across the world, because um the West Indies, have a lot of fans across the world. There's something about the West Indies team that attracts a lot of people. A lot of people are gravitated to. So there weren't just West Indian fans, hoping that the West Indies won that World Cup. There are a lot of cricket fans across the world that wanted the West Indies to win. And when he hit that third six, man, it was just, yeah. I can't explain that feeling, but it was amazing, right? And of course, when he hit that, the fourth six, which secured the victory for West Indies, it was just hey, it I remember it to this day, man. It was that feeling, you never forget that feeling of seeing your team, win a World Cup title as a cricket fan, and then of course the infamous, like again, Ian Bishop, with his commentary, Carlos Brathwaite, remember the name, it, and you could just hear the excitement in his voice, because obviously Ian Bishop is a former West Indian player as well, who's now a commentator, and he's one of the best commentators in the world. I'll definitely give him that. And he's proven, his track record speaks for itself. He's proven that over the years, with his commentary. It was a great feeling, and I don't know if it's coincidental or what. It just so happens that I was reading an article about Ben Stokes, and him deciding, that he won't be available for England, for selection for England for the upcoming T20 World Cup this year, and that was yesterday, and then today is the anniversary of the carnage that Carlos Brathwaite, did to him in the final over of that T20 World Cup. And I was just wondering, I was saying, how coincidental, huh? Like, after Ben Stokes and that, he won't be available for the World Cup, the next day is the anniversary of, the day when Carlos Brathwaite, dismantled him in that over, for the lack of a better word. Like I said, 19 runs off any over in any format of cricket is a lot of runs to ask any batting team to score, no matter how good the batsmen are, and heading into that final over, England were definitely the favorites to win, based on the amount of runs that were required. But Carlos Brathwaite showed up, and he did his thing, so as Ian Bishop said, Carlos Brathwaite, remember the name. You never forget that innings that he played against England in that T20 World Cup final. But always remember, when you remember Carlos Brathwaite, remember Marlon Samuels as well, because West Indies would not have been in that position where the heroics of Carlos Brathwaite could have led us to victory without that innings from Marlon Samuels. And the bowlers as well, right? Because they restricted England to 154, so they needed 155 runs to win, which is very gettable in T20 cricket, right? Just a required run rate of 7 point something, almost 8 runs and over. That in T20 cricket, that's very gettable. So the West Indian bowlers as well, definitely deserve credit for how they bowl in that match as well. And like I said, cricket is a team sport. So even though it was the heroics of Carlos Brathwaite that brought the team over the line, it was a entire team effort, by the bowlers of the West Indies, the fielders, and the other batsmen as well, especially Marlon Samuels and Carlos Brathwaite. So always remember Carlos Brathwaite, remember the name, and hopefully West Indies can, repeat that winning performance in this upcoming T20 World Cup here in the Caribbean, right? So again, so just wanted to do a quick live video on this, and just as again, just a walk down memory lane for us West Indian fans, And so about that is all I have for this video. As always, if this is your first time tuning into the Sports Perspective TV, do remember to subscribe, leave a like on the video, and share your thoughts in the comments as well. And so with that, I'll end the video and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.